Good evening. It's April the 10th, 2023, and I'm so happy that you're with us this evening. We've got a lot to talk about, specifically tonight that we are now finished with Easter and Passover. Ramadan's now two-thirds over, but we're going to take a hard look at religion and politics in our nation and what it's doing for us or to us. Also, a very big announcement concerning our state convention. All that and more on tonight's Hamilton Report. Good evening once again. I am so happy that you're with us tonight. This has been a really upside down news week. We've gone through so much as a state and as a nation, as we saw last week, what happened to two of the three Tennessee lawmakers who were literally stripped of everything and expelled from their seats. We're not going to talk much about that tonight, except how it plays a part in the bigger story. But before that, we've got a very important announcement to make. For months, our chair, Alicia Andrew, and I have been working to find just the right speaker for our Carl Albert dinner. We've talked to many folks, we've considered many folks, and just a few moments ago, before we came on the air, we got the exciting news that our guest speaker for the Carl Albert dinner on June the 3rd is Beto O'Rourke. And nothing could make me happy. Let's take a look at this man who has done so much to change the face of politics in Texas. And we're excited that he will be joining us in Tulsa on June the 3rd. So that's something that we're all looking forward to. And now that we have our keynote speaker selected, we're off and running. Many county conventions are happening this weekend. So if yours didn't happen last weekend, it will be happening this weekend. And we encourage you to be a part of that process because this is not a top-down organization. We look for input and guidance and recommendations and thoughts from everyone that we serve. So the best way to do that is to get started in the party at the county level. And again, this weekend, we'll be concluding county elections. So if you have not had one in your county, you can go to our website to get the information for your county election at okdemocrats.org. Our topic tonight is one that I feel a little I was concerned, I guess, as I was considering it over the weekend, because I don't want it to be taken the wrong way. I want to be very clear that my Christian faith is central to who I am, to the way I live my life or try to live my life. I have seen religion, organized religion, serve the needs of so many people in times of trouble, in times of happiness. As a pastor, I've worked with old folks who are coming to the very end of their lives. I've worked with parents who have lost a child, and they have found deep strength in their faith. And for that, I'm grateful, because it does continue for me to guide me in the way I think, in the way I move, and the way I conduct business, both here for the party and in my own life. But I'm very, very concerned about the role of Christianity, and I'm using that in big air quotes here. What is happening in our nation, all in the name of Christianity? It's Christian nationalism run amok. And we have seen some disastrous things, all in the name of religion. And so tonight I wanted us to spend a few minutes to look at what this country must feel like for someone who is Jewish or Muslim or Buddhist, Hindu, or has no particular faith tradition whatsoever. It must be pretty alienating because of the way that the religious right has taken over the name Christian. We started seeing this a number of years ago with the moral majority, which frankly was neither. And it continues even into this day. Let's take a listen now to Representative Marjorie Trader Greene speaking, and look at the images that go along with her speech.
Now, if the Republican Party becomes a party that actually does the things we say we're about, then we are going to be a party for nationalism. Isn't that right? But then I think there's another element we need to have, and I'm a Christian. How many Christians do we have here? So you see, I also call myself a Christian nationalist, and that's not a bad word. That's actually a good thing, right? And there's nothing wrong with leading with your faith, because we should lead with our faith. Because if we're doing that, then we're doing the right thing. It doesn't mean we're perfect, it just means we're doing the right thing. And I think that's what the Republican Party needs to be about.
The right thing. Oh, if only it were so. Only imagine what kind of position our country would be in today if people truly lived out their faith in its wholeness, as opposed to picking up pieces of it here and there and weaving together a narrative that frankly is very customized as to what one thinks or what one believes or what one says. We all remember the infamous day when smoke and tear gas was flung into the crowd in Washington, just simply so the then president could make a big show of holding up a Bible in front of the church. And, you know, we laughed about it at the time, but it frankly, it was a scary moment to see that when he was asked, "Is that your Bible?" He said, "It's a Bible." That's neither here nor there. But what is important is the way that people are using their religion. And I'm saying religion here as opposed to faith, but they're using their religion to get into the personal lives of all of us. Now, we've talked some on this broadcast, and certainly it's been covered ad infinitum in other news sources about the books that are being banned in high schools and junior highs and grade schools and public libraries across this country. Now, that's a very, very bad step. When we start to tell adults what they can and cannot read, we are not living a faith-based existence, because instead we are using it to control other people. Let's look at guns for a moment. I heard a preacher over the weekend, this was from a Good Friday sermon that he delivered, said if the disciples had had AK rifles, then Jesus never would have been killed. Now, imagine what kind of thinking is involved in a brain like that, where you stand up before your congregation and you say, we need more assault rifles on the streets today. There are churches right here in Oklahoma City that have armed guards at their doors. And I don't mean with hidden guns. I'm talking about with big assault rifles standing at the doors. And I'm sorry, that's not a very Christian welcome. But that's the thing that we're seeing. Book bans and Bibles and guns, somehow this is an equation that is not set for good, but is driving us quickly toward a time when, frankly, I don't think any of us want to see the end result of that. Speaking of book bans, you can imagine the horror show that has existed in states where parents have said, we should ban the Bible. from schools because it is full of sex and adultery. It's full of all kinds of things that we don't want our children exposed to. And now the people who are banning books are in an uproar saying, well, that's not ever what we intended. No, of course not. What you intended was to tell other people what they could read. But when it comes home to roost and you're the one impacted, you sing a very different tune. But these things are growing in our nation. I won't say more than at any other point in our history, but I will say it's a strong growth process and it's alienating people in major ways. Now, make no mistake, I know that the church writ large has done damage to individuals. I know that children have had horrific experiences at the hands of preachers and youth pastors. I know that so many people have been pushed out the doors of churches. And there's no excuse for any of that in my way of thinking and my way of worshiping. But each church can do as it sees fit. But think about the danger that has been foisted upon individuals. When we talk about banning so-called conversion therapy, and conversion therapy, as a reminder, is that absolutely disputed process that has been deemed dangerous by every single medical professional society in this country, where the leaders of these outfits claim that they can turn someone from gay to straight. Doesn't happen. It never has happened. It's not doable. It's not possible. But they're selling this snake oil to align with the norm. Well, what is the norm? Well, for one thing, for the last 23 years, women had the option of taking a medication to eliminate a pregnancy. This is done very early on in the pregnancy, and it has saved countless women's lives, countless lives of so many people. It has helped families, it has helped individuals. And now in one day, one man, one federal judge changes everything. It's very likely that by this time next week, these pills will be banned throughout the country. Now, it's no surprise that he voted this way. His friends, his co-workers all said, oh, yeah, he's been anti-abortion forever, and he's just voting his conscience. No, Judge, that's not what you're supposed to do. You don't vote your conscience. You make a decision based on the law. You're not listening to the people of America. You are using your faith, your religion, to dictate how other people live their lives, or in this case, may very well lose their lives. Something is wrong with a society that will allow one person appointed by the failed former president to make such a declaration. It makes no sense to me, and it's very, very troubling, because we're moving quickly now toward a place that I think will render this country unrecognizable. Got a note here that says we don't need more guns, and with the comment that having more guns does not make you a better Christian. And continuing, the only people that ever banned books were the bad guys. Oh, that is so true, Sherry. Thank you for saying that. But we're banning books, but we're making it easier to buy guns. There was another mass shooting just this morning. This is a staggering statistic, but we are in the 99th day of this year. And look at this. We have had 146 mass shootings so far this year. That's 1.5 a day. That doesn't count the individuals whose lives have been lost or forever changed. So, no, that is not a Christian approach. And it's time for us to either separate church and state or justify bringing them together. You know, Ryan Walters, who's I can't even hardly speak his name, has been just so vociferous in proclaiming, his faith and that's why we're doing this and that's why we're doing that. But he was so giddy when Kansas just passed a bill in their house that would allow for schools to inspect the genitals of every child who wanted to play sports. Now, you know that they're not going to inspect the genitals of a football player, but everybody else, yeah, that's going to be their right in Kansas. Well, it could be our right here in Oklahoma as well, or rather the right of those who seem so very preoccupied with sex and genitalia and children. It's disgusting. And to claim that that is religion, that's a new one on me. And thank you again, Sherry, saying you keep church and state separate. It has always been that way. And that's what we have to think about. That's what we have to work with. And that's how we can move from this place of a theocracy, which is what some people absolutely want, a dictatorship based on faith, without ever recognizing the fact that most of Hitler's supporters all claim to be Christian. When our faith causes us to make bad decisions about the lives of other people, whether that be in the legislature, the city council, the county board, or some federal judge, then we have got to pay attention. And we've got to demand that changes be made. I have begged you so often to write and to call your legislators, and you have done such a great job of that. And I'm so appreciative, because it makes a big difference when they hear from you. But we can't call a judge and say, Judge, you need to find in this way. So we're stuck, at least for the moment. But we need to be thinking about what true faith is compared to religion, or religiosity, as actually it's, I think, more appropriate to call it. We just went through Holy Week. Easter Sunday was yesterday. Passover was last week. Ramadan is now 2/3 over for this year. We have a lot of celebrations and observances for different faith-based groups. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for those freedoms. But we are losing other freedoms. And eventually we may well lose our religious freedoms also. Friends, this is not taking a bat at any religion, and certainly not at Christianity as a big umbrella tent. But what I'm saying is that when your religion causes you to harm other people, then you have to be held accountable. And I'm not talking about in the afterlife. I'm not talking about after death. I'm talking about here and now. A number of CEOs of different pharmaceutical companies have written a letter of protest about this judge's ruling. As I said, for 23 years, it's been legal in the United States. And with one flash of the pen, that right can be taken away. And so we are in a territory that is new for some, and it's becoming harder to make the case. Why? Well, for one thing, Americans are fleeing organized religion. They're fleeing churches in numbers that we haven't seen in recent history, if ever, in the United States. Was a time not long ago when the vast majority of Americans said they attended one or more worship services a week. That number now is paltry by comparison. So, how do we stand with good people of good conscience who are members of faith communities? How do we amplify their voices? Well, first, we've got to call BS everywhere we find it. That's the bottom line. When someone is speaking or someone is posting online some rhetoric trying to account for their negative actions against someone and cloaking it in religion, we've got to call it out. You do, I do, we all must call it out. I'm passionate about this because too many people's lives are being ruined at the hands of a religious few. We've all seen clips of preachers preaching from the pulpit about who to elect to a particular office, specifically the office of the President of the United States. That's wrong. That's not the place for that. But it continues unabated with no seeming threat to remove the tax-free status of most religious organizations. Friends, it's time we get serious about our country, about our fellow Americans, about our families, because the religious stronghold, and again, I'm saying religious stronghold in this country, is not doing us any favors. Again, it's hard for me to even say those words because of my own life experiences in the church and working for the church, but it's the reality. Because a lot of churches, frankly, are unrecognizable compared to what they should be. They may have the name church, but that's about as far as it goes. When you stand up and proclaim that a woman who has had an affair should be stoned to death, or when you say that gay people should be lined up against a wall and shot dead in the back from the pulpit, that's not American. It's free speech, but it's not American. Friends, we have a lot to lose if we don't remain vigilant. And I mean holding people in our own communities accountable. How often have you driven by a church and you've read a sign and it just infuriates you? Do you stop, get the phone number for the church and call them up later? Do you send that photo to your social media and talk about how horrifying it is? These are things that we can do and we must do. We are in a place now that requires us to, and it should be motivating us to take action. Yes, I'm talking about action in the polls. Absolutely. We have got to vote more consistently in higher numbers and make better choices. That's a given. But I'm saying don't wait until the next election. We can do something about this today. If you are a member of a church or a mosque or a synagogue and something is said in hatred instead of love, speak up about that. We have more power than we think we do. We just have to reckon with the fact that there are a whole bunch of us out here not quite sure what to do. Well, that's something I'm going to be working on over the next year. How can we work together with faith-based groups to make a powerful, positive change in this country so that we don't have the nut jobs deciding things that are none of their business, but they're trying to tell us how to live our lives, even when they live lives so un-Christ-like. It's appalling. Friends, you can tell this is a big issue for me, and I hope that it is for you too, because we have got to be better. As a nation, we've got to become better, but you and I have to be better in lifting up a voice of hope, of courage, of encouragement for people who are being left out, people who are being left on the cutting room floor, people who are literally losing their lives because some preacher told them it was okay to carry an assault weapon. You know I am not anti-gun, but I'm anti-dead children. And until and unless we all take up the mantle of separating the wheat from the chaff, then we're going to get what we've been getting, all in the name of religion. Stop. Stop it, Marjorie Trader Green. Stop it, 45. Stop using faith as a cover for your evil. And that goes for every legislator, every judge, every person who has any control over anyone else's life. Please join me in letting these holidays, these religious holidays, not go to waste. Put your own faith into practice. And if you have no faith tradition, I respect that tremendously. But let your convictions help you to be a stronger advocate for good, stopping the nonsense of guns and petty legislation and overturning a woman's right to choose, a family's right to choose. These are times that call for action from all of us. Thank you for joining us this evening. It means the world to me that you are here on Monday evenings. I hope that you will hit the like button and also share this video, because the more exposure we get, and I mean we as Democrats, the stronger our message becomes, and it gives us an even larger platform to create positive change in Oklahoma, in the nation, and in the world. Thank you again, friends. I hope that you will take advantage of your early ticket prices. They will go up in 2 weeks for Carl Albert dinner, so you can find that information on our website. Go ahead and get your tickets to hear Beto O'Rourke. It's going to be a stunning speech, and I can't wait. Well, until we're together again next Monday evening, please take good care of yourself, do something kind for a stranger, and hold on to those that you love. From all of us at the Oklahoma Democratic Party, I'm Scott J. Hamilton, thanking you for being with us. Good night.